Welcome to Downshift. My name is Matt, and this is the BMW X1. This is BMW's smallest and most affordable SUV. But don't for a second let that fool you into thinking that there's not plenty of stuff going on. So today, thanks to our friends at International BMW, we're going to show you everything you need to know about the X1. The first thing we'll cover is what is the X1? Well, this is the latest X1 and it changes things up a bit. It's still the smallest full roof SUV from BMW, but now it rides on a mini chassis, so it is inherently front wheel drive based, but all X1s come standard with xDrive all-wheel drive with a nice torque vectoring system, which we'll talk about later behind the wheel. And then in terms of engine, you have the 2-liter turbocharged, not 48-volt mild hybrid system though, but you make 241 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque. That's more than the Audi and that's more than the GLB 250. Again, you get all-wheel drive, and interestingly, you get a 7-speed dual-clutch transmission rather than the 8-speed auto that's in pretty much every other BMW. I suspect this might be some of the mini influence showing itself, but either way, 0 to 60 ends up in mid to low 6 seconds. And then we'll talk fuel economy. Now, BMW engines are notoriously efficient while also being powerful. You get 25 mpg in the city with this thing and 34 mpg on the highway. Now that's pretty good, especially considering the less I should say, aerodynamic shape of the full conventional boxy style SUV here, and the fact that there's no 48-volt mild hybrid system here. The 48-volt system might improve efficiency just a touch, maybe 1 mpg, but it would also smooth out things like gear changes and pulling away from a stop, which is something we'll talk about with that dual clutch behind the wheel again. And if you're interested in towing something with your X1, you can forget it. BMW does not offer a tow rating on this thing. Interestingly though, you will be able to tow up to 2,000 or 2,200 pounds in your Q3, and there's some conflicting information online of what the GLB 250 will tow. But this, you're not really going to tow anything with your X1. And we mentioned it a second ago, but I want to talk looks. Now, it's a very conventional boxy shape here. It's almost like baby X5 if you think about it that way. This thing is 2 inches longer than it was last gen and an inch wider than last gen. Personally, I love the look of this thing. I love the shape. The spec here with the alpine white is very cool. This and the GLB, I think, are the best looking in the segment. The Q3 is okay, but these are the best looking. This also gets the Shadowline package, which gets you all these blacked out accents, your window treatments, your wing mirrors, and of course, your front grille is full black thanks to the Shadowline. But there's another package contributing to the look, and that is the M Sport package. And it does more than the look, but let's start on the exterior. It gives you this more aggressive lower fascia. It looks very aggressive and sporty. And then around the side, you get more unique M Sport wheels, and they even have the M logo in the spokes there. Now on the X1, you can get 18 or 19-inch wheels. Then incoming M35i will get you 20-inch wheels, but you have the unique M Sport ones here. You also get upgraded brakes and adaptive suspension as part of the M Sport package, so this thing will handle a little bit more aggressively and you can drive it a little bit harder. And around back you get this more aggressive roof spoiler and a more aggressive diffuser. Look at this. It's interesting though, you still get no exposed exhaust ports. This is not a hybrid, this is not electric, but you still don't have exhaust showing. Interestingly though, the M35i will have quad tips. But there's some M Sport stuff going on inside as well. Namely, you get your M Sport steering wheel, pretty obvious, but you also then, as part of the M Sport package, get paddle shifters, and see this one, this is your boost paddle, which also gets you launch control. You've also got more M-specific seats with some suede inlays, some blue stitching, and of course the M tricolor. And let's talk trunk. Now of course, it is powered, this is a BMW after all. With the seats up, you've got about 29 cubic feet of space. It's pretty good. With the rear seats down, and they do fold completely flat, you'll get about 57 cubic feet of space, which makes it 10 more than the Audi Q3 and just a smidge under the GLB. But this is incredibly practical back here. You can't drop the seats from back here. You have to do that from the front, but they do fold 40-20-40, and I always like the little netted side pockets that you get on these cars. And I want to talk about the spec of this car. Now, the alpine white with the Shadowline is a very classic spec, and on the interior, it matches it really well. Again, we talked about these seats, the black with the blue stitching and the M tricolor. They're heated. Let me show you. they're heated with 4 different levels of heating. And interestingly, you've got heated steering wheel here with also 4 different levels of heating. I've never seen a heated steering wheel with 4 different levels of heat. That is pretty cool. You are not going to get a cooled seat option, and you're not going to get a heated rear seat option on your X1 though. But your center console here, does that look familiar from maybe the BMW iX? And it's very cool and Gatsby-esque volume controller. You've also got a full width or full length panoramic roof, which is very cool. You've got some ambient light hiding around here, and the coolest wireless charger in the game. Of course, you put your phone in here. It's got its own little seat belt, which is kind of cool, and you've got ambient light rimming the phone, which is very dramatic for it indeed. Oh, and your Harman Kardon speaker covers, they look pretty cool and they sound pretty good too. And then we're gonna check out the rear seats. Again, all the suede and the blue stitching and everything continues back here. You'll love to see it, the cool speaker covers and door card and everything. But we'll step in. I'm 6'1", sitting behind myself. Still have about an inch or 2 of knee room. Now this is pushed artificially back so I can show you stuff in the front. So I actually even have more knee room than this is demonstrating. Headroom, fantastic, even with the full pano roof here. You've got vents, you've got USB-C, map pockets here. These fold totally flat, which is where you're gonna get all that trunk space, but this is a bigger back seat than you're gonna get in the Q3 and just a touch smaller than the GLB. But that caveat is the GLB does come with a 3rd row for some reason. So only if you get the non-3rd row is the GLB gonna be bigger in the back seat. So this is either class leading or damn near. But now I wanna talk about the technology in here. Now you do get a head-up display. This is part of your premium package. Very cool, very helpful. You love to see a head-up display. You also do get your big dual screens. Now this is something that we've seen in pretty much every BMW in the last year or 2. This is running the iDrive 8 software. The 2024 cars are going to be running iDrive 9, but even with iDrive 8, you get things like wireless Apple CarPlay, you get over-the-air updates, throw it into reverse. You can see we have the awesome 360 cameras here. Where's my 3D view? There's my 3D view. The car is almost the right spec, but just maybe a little bit different. You can even see we have live and active things like our reverse lights and our brake lights. Brake lights go off, and there we go. Very cool. You even have the reverse assist breadcrumbs thing. So if you pull into a spot that's kind of tricky, this thing will get you out of it. Very, very cool and helpful feature. And of course, we talked about the coolest wireless phone charger I've ever seen. Now I want to talk about this bit here. Now my tester here comes equipped with the Driver Assist Pro package, which is pretty good. Adaptive cruise, lane keep, all that good stuff. But as standard, your X1 does not come with adaptive cruise, which is a little bit strange. I kind of figured that everything from BMW, Mercedes, and Audi would come with at least adaptive cruise. But this Driver Assist Pro package, very, very good. And then just some general housekeeping stuff. You've got your adaptive content page, which I always like. I'm gonna put my foot on the brake. You can see brake lights. I'm gonna throw it in reverse. Well, we're gonna see this. But if I go back here, we still have the reverse LEDs. I mean, this is just kind of cool. Is it really practical? No, probably not, but it is just kind of cool to see exactly what your car is doing on your screen. I also thought this was interesting. I haven't seen iconic sounds in anything other than the electric BMWs. That's that Hans Zimmer synthetic sound, but you have iconic sounds here, which will kind of augment your exhaust tone to make it more, I guess you could say aggressive, but interesting to see this on a non-EV. And the last thing we'll talk about, as it always is price. Now, a BMW X1 starts at $40,500. As tested, this thing just creeps over the line of $50,000, but it's got just about everything you could possibly want on this thing. Interestingly though, at that $50,000 mark, that's also where your M35i is gonna start, the big power. I guess you get 70 more horsepower in that thing. We'll see if we can test it later this year. And then if you were curious, if you were gonna step up to the X3 starts at $47,000 for rear-wheel drive or $49,000 for all-wheel drive. So technically $1,000 less than the as-tested price here, but that's with nothing on it. So let's grab the key and go for a drive. Behind the wheel of the X1 Sport Mode. Oh, that took a while. So this is a new car. So I'm not gonna put it in launch control. I'm not gonna, you know, rev it out and then just dump the clutch. But it does take a second with that 7-speed DCT to get off the line a little bit. Now 241 horsepower, 295 pound-feet of torque, that's just about the most power in the segment. 0 to 60 is in like the low to mid 6 seconds, so it's not like it's slow, but it does just take a second. It does think about it if you're not in boost or launch mode or whatever you want to call it. But the thing that I like about this M Sport car is you can control the gearbox on your own. And once the turbo hits, I mean, it actually has nothing to do with the turbo, but the shifts on here are really, really crisp. I think with this in the M35i, it's going to be a beautiful car to drive. I love sound and I love snap. You don't get a lot of sound here. It is kind of like the little raspy economy 4-cylinder sound, but this isn't the powerful one. All right, we'll do it again. 3, 2, 1, foot down. We're going. Now turbo. Yeah. So, if you're gonna launch this thing, make sure you use the launch control. But other than that, I mean, it is fun. I'm gonna chill it out. I'm gonna go into, let's say, efficient. We'll go into efficient mode. Now this with the M Sport package does get you the suspension. So now I'm in efficient mode. It's gonna soften off a little bit. The transmission is gonna soften back a little bit. The engine is gonna chill out a little bit. So it does become just an X1. And right now, the ride is good, the cabin isolation is good. I feel like I'm sitting up high enough. I feel like I am in an SUV, even though it is their smaller SUV. I've got plenty of headroom. I've got a huge windshield in front of me. I mean, the visibility is phenomenal. It's a good SUV. So the question then becomes, this Q3 GLB. For me, the Q3 is the most affordable, but I'm not really interested. Between the styling, it's not as nice on the interior, it's not as well appointed, and it's just not as powerful. It's just not, it doesn't do anything for me, really. It's fine, it's a perfectly fine vehicle, but it doesn't do anything for me personally. Then there's the GLB, which again is kind of, it feels more economy than this. The engine is a little bit more wheezy. So for me, the GLB is like almost a purely styling exercise. I love the way that it looks, especially if we had like a similar spec, this kind of like Domino Stormtrooper spec with the white and the black. But as far as like a driving perspective, the GLB isn't as good for me. So it really does come down to this X1, and especially with the fact that you're going to be able to get the M35i soon, very interested in that. So I think with that, let's hit the final thoughts. So there it is. Those are the 13 things you need to know about the BMW X1. As you can see, this is a pretty solid little SUV. It's either class leading or very close in pretty much all categories. If you're interested though on seeing more detailed comparison on how this stacks up against things like the Audi Q3 and the Mercedes GLB, check out our pros and cons video that came on the channel earlier this week. But until then, thanks again to our friends at International BMW for letting us have a go in their X1 so we can show you all the cool stuff. We'll see you in the next time.